But in a situation where you find that you look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
All right, thanks for staying. It's Daybreak on Trust Television. Now time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak, beginning with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story this morning says President, VP, Senate President, Speaker, CJN, governors, others to enjoy pay hike. You have the writer that says as RMAFC reviews salaries of public political office holders. Labour kicks says its recipe for crisis. NGF welcomes proposed pay rise. It's economically irresponsible. That's according to experts. You'd find details of that on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Just above that, the lead story, it says FG dismisses U.S. security alert, says Nigeria now safer. That's on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. The next story there, sacked APC directors accuse Adamu of withdrawing 3 billion naira from secret accounts, and that's on page 30. Jonathan seeks legal provisions to protect deputy governors. That's on page 31. Beside the pictorial, you'd find Boko Haram kills scores of ISWAP fighters, loses 3 in reprisal battle. Fuel scarcity worsens in Lagos as filling stations shut down on page 23. Senate probes FG's 52 billion naira public works scheme on page 34. And at the footnote, you'd find Buhari blames climate change as flood kills 612, affects 3.2 million Nigerians on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Not forgetting that it's 496 days and we still have 11 schoolgirls of FGC Birnin Yawuri in captivity, and 1 student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, is 469 days for the 1 student. So these are the stories on the front page of our newspaper today.
All right, now let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper. The Leadership leads with a story that says, federal government chides U.S. Embassy, UK over security alert, says its attempt to disrupt Nigeria's peace and stability. Service chiefs revive joint operations. Dismantle roadblocks, increase presence on highways, streets. UN alerts of plot to abduct humanitarian workers in Borno. We also have Oshibajo, Jonathan Ganuje moved to strengthen Office of Deputy. CBN targets 100% cashless economy. We also have floods, 1.4 million displaced, 612 dead. 21 states get relief materials. And on politics, Autumn dumps Atiku as Tinubu tackles Obaseki over breakup comment. Just below the masthead, power disruption looms as federal government directs Gencos to reduce generation. And just above the masthead, Senate to name Women's Center after Mariam Babangida. We also have the story here. Like in 2019, court nullifies all APC primaries in Rivers State. These are the major stories on the Leadership newspaper.
And on this day newspaper, the lead story talks about the security alert. It says FG terror alert. FG is saying terror alert on FCT by foreign embassies unverified and misleading. The writer says warning not for Nigerians. UK insists there's increased threat in Abuja. Warns assault may be indiscriminate, Western interest targeted. You'd also find at the very top there, Emefiele e-Naira recorded 8 billion naira transactions in 1 year. Petrol scarcity hits Lagos, enters 4th week in Abuja. Just below the masthead, court nullifies APC primaries in Rivers. Party says ruling dead on arrival. Oshibajo, why hardworking deputies run into problems. These are the stories on the front page of this day newspaper.
Now let's take a look at the Tribune newspaper. It leads with court nullifies APC primaries in Rivers. And beneath that, marketers sell petrol at 195 naira as queues return. We also have the story here, why we transferred 21 justices. This is coming from the appeal court. Lagos sets up inquest to unravel cause of IVD's wife's death. Still on the Tribune, Atiku visits flood victims in Bayelsa. Police arrest suspected kidnappers, armed robbers with goods worth 25 million naira in Oyo State. And just below the masthead, I am 43% Nigerian, Meghan Markle reveals. Also, Sunak meets King Charles III, assumes office as UK Prime Minister. We also have the story here. Nigeria remains secure with us. APC replies Obaseki. These are the major stories on the Tribune newspaper.
All right, now if you take a look at the Nation newspaper, there the lead story says, scarcity, petrol ex-depot price rises to 178 naira per litre. You'd find the riders that says queues spread in Lagos filling stations. Are stock sufficient for 24.82 days? NMDPRA. We will sell fuel for 200 per litre in Southwest, says Ipman, and PCL depots empty. You'd also find Autumn Benue elders withdraw support for Atiku. Kogi, Bayelsa, Imo governorship polls fixed for November 11, 2023. Flooding, climate change hurting Nigeria, says Buhari. EFCC to go after lawyers, bankers aiding financial crimes. And then you have at the very footnote, Oyetola leads supporters in 9.2-kilometer walk for Tinubu Shetima. These are the stories. OAA students dead. Oshun CJ fumes over Adedoyin's absence in court. These are the stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
And on to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian newspaper also leads with the petrol scarcity. It says, petrol nears 200 naira per litre as ex-depot price, deaths, logistics escalate scarcity. Fuel queues will disappear in 48 hours, Mowan says. Ipman blames private depots for shortages. NMDPRA assures of robust supply. And then the third rider says, U.S. to worsen petrol scarcity with proposed export ban. And still on the Guardian, Tinubu Atiku absent as Obi others unveil agenda for women. And just beneath the masthead, how rogue ships become invisible in Nigerian waters. This is by NPA. Jonathan converses constitutional rules for deputy governors. Court nullifies APC primaries in Rivers. Appeal Court clarifies 21 justices transfer, says panel on Nnamdi Kanu not targeted. These are the major stories on The Guardian.
All right, so let's get perspectives on some of these stories this morning. We have in the studio Ben Sherman, the Director of News, Voice of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
My pleasure. Stella is back. Last Wednesday you were not around.
I'm happy to be back.
Okay.
Yes. Stella went to
hope you didn't bring
recalibrate.
the fuel scarcity.
Well, you know, it has been on for over 2 weeks now.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about the fuel scarcity, it's becoming unbecoming, if you may. This is not what we thought. We thought that it's all because of the flood, but it's looking like the flood was only an opportunity for something else, because that's what we are seeing now. We are now seeing other reasons surface, the issue of, you know, increase in price at the depot and all that, and then spreading in other parts of the country and all of that. What's your take on this?
Honestly, I think the reasons are becoming too many and at the point simplistic, are too simple. At the point we were told schools were resuming, so there was scarcity of fuel. At the point we were told there were strikes here and there. At the point we were told because of force majeure, some circumstances beyond some people in charge of the oil industry, they cannot supply. At the point we were told, look, of the Ukrainian crisis, at the point we were told of the flood in Kogi State, Lokoja in particular, now we are seeing a different thing. Private jetties have increased pump prices, I mean, cost of loading. Now, if therefore you're going to buy in a private jetty and this amount is that high, you also have to find out what happened to them. Where did they get it from? Maybe they also got it very high somewhere. And of course, they are in business, they have to fling it that high. Now, why private jetty? Why is it that it's obtainable in private JCs and not obtainable in government depot? And so we ought to, scrutinize quite a lot of these things so that these reasons we keep on shifting the goalposts should not be the thing that Nigerians are looking for. More so, we are moving towards elections. These are things that we should see the presidential candidates or political parties bringing to the front burner. This is what is happening. It's been a recurring decimal, and we want to stop this incessant scarcity of this fuel product. Therefore, this is going to be our approach. And
but to be fair to the current administration, I mean, for the greater part of this administration, we haven't really experienced this much of fill queues in filling stations, and all of a sudden, towards the tail end of it, we are now seeing this happen. I mean, in the last 1 year, we've seen several fill scarcity, experienced by Nigerians and all of that. What are the likely, what are the motives in your observation for why we are having this now?
Well, you see, I used to have a director of news who ended up being the director general of Eversi and Ben Ebuna. He would tell us, you are judged by your last production, not the 1,000 ones you've done. The last one is what will be used to judge. In other words, if this one is just bad, it's what we are using you on. Good thing, they've been doing it nicely, but if at the tail end of the regime and we are seeing some things not in order, I think that they should rework the plan. What has gone wrong? Are there people who are sabotaging government? Are there moles within the system that are kind of trying to paint the government black? Or is there ineptitude, or there are some people who indeed do not have the carrying capacity of some jobs given unto them? And so this is also part of what the National Assembly should scrutinize, because they ought to be doing oversight function, not joining Nigerian masses to be reading the book of lamentation. It used to be this, it used to be that.
It's beginning to look like some sort of blackmail. Shortly before the last increase in pump price, there was this scarcity, so much so that by the time they increased the pump price and the product was available, Nigerians didn't complain, because they were like, okay, at least we can find it to buy. Now, we have experienced this scarcity in Abuja. Now it has come up in Lagos, and they're now telling us that to load it from the depots is now 178. One paper said it's close to 200. Is this another back door of another increment?
Strategy, maybe a new strategy that is now devised for incremental.
And that would be too soon, considering.
It's like testing the grounds. After all, if you look at the budget 2022-23, at the point they're saying subsidy has to go. So if this is an indirect way of testing the ground, well, let us see what is happening. It's like flying a kite. But if truly subsidy should go, let it simply go, and let Nigerians buy according to the market forces. Let people sell according to market sources. Wherever you got it from, at what price, and you are making maybe a kind of little profit, and you feel that is okay for you.
For subsidy between now till June of next year, though?
Well, so there's nothing wrong in testing the grounds, because even what you call government public policy communication, there are times you fly a kite, you say a statement, you pass a statement to see people's reaction. So
But
how
I
are
mean,
people reacting because of this?
But when
and
you
that
have,
can be a guide.
When you have a provision for subsidy and people are still buying the fuel at exorbitant prices, then what's the point of the subsidy? And where is the money going to?
This capitalism, and people do it, some people do it without conscience. You make the money, it does not matter who is being bled. It doesn't matter whose blood is being sucked. That's capitalism. But when government comes to say, we are here to give succor to the populace, so should it be. Therefore, in doing that, if there is anybody who is standing against government providing that, I mean, such people should be brought to book. That's the truth of the matter. There are just no two ways. We cannot just wake up where some associations wake up and just hike prices today. Nothing goes down when it comes goes up in Nigeria.
Will you say just about the association? Because when they did the hike in about a couple of months ago, we didn't see the government trying to reverse it or anything like that.
Absolutely.
So it looked like there was an agreement.
Well, that's still the same thing as flying this same kite. But again, where are the lawmakers who indeed are supposed to be doing this oversight function? And that's why you have all sorts of, even those in barbering saloon, they just say, this is it. Vulcanizers, you just go with the tire, you need to just get just a little. They say, I pumped it 60. 60, who told you? Was there no air in the tire before? So they just increase prices. Nobody is checking all of this. There has to be a committee, or a commission, or a body that is supposed to be checking this incessant crisis, increase in a commodity, virtually of everything.
But I thought we do that. I mean, I thought we have that. We have those agencies.
You could have, but there are some people who are in the doldrums. You could have, there are some people who indeed do not know the job they are supposed to be doing. You could have, they could know, they could also fail to do. They could also want to do, they don't have the instrument to do all of these things. The whole gamut of
all right, so we should be aiming towards making the institution more efficient in dealing with this and in meeting its mandate. Well, let's look at other stories.
Let's look at this story on the Daily Trust newspaper. It says, Jonathan seeks legal provisions to protect deputy governors. And he spoke during the launch of the book by the current governor of Kano State, who himself was a deputy governor at some point.
And he also fought with the principal.
You know, a lot of people have always wondered about the roles of deputy governors in states. A lot of people, I mean, most times they are referred to as spare tires. You know, and they don't have any particular role in the constitution, as it were. So governors, it depends on how the relationship between them and their principal at that time.
Absolutely. I remember when the heat was so much between Atiku and Obasanjo. Atiku himself said, well, as a vice president, I am a spare hand back. You only pick me when you desire. Now, if it is so, it means they don't really have roles to play.
But I mean,
constitutionally,
but for deputy governors, unlike the vice president, I think that the vice president has more constitutional roles than the deputy governors, don't you think?
Yeah, they could have, but we need some of these things enshrined outside the constitution, saying that if the principal falls sick or resigns or is on leave, it's then the deputy or the vice president takes over. But there has to be some agencies that are constitutionally designed and allocated or enshrined to ensure that the vice president or the deputy governor is in charge of all those things. And if you check, you could find somebody so vibrant outside the government, but the moment he becomes a deputy, oh no, I don't have to outsmart, I don't have to outshine, I don't want to outdo my principal. And you could find that a best brain has just been kept in the cooler. And in the end of it, look at how many deputy governors get to succeed. governors?
Before
How
you
many
even get
vice
to-
presidents get to succeed presidents?
Before you
It's
even
been
get
very,
to the,
very
before
rare.
you even get to the position of succession, we have had instances where because maybe a deputy governor defected or the governor defected and his deputy did not go with him, that deputy governor is sidelined from governance and all of that.
And impeached,
or
don't
even
forget.
impeached.
Yes, and
It happened in Zamfara.
and this affects governance, don't you think?
Absolutely, because when you look at, in terms of governance, these are supposed to be leaders. In fact, leadership is like a school. There are some people, some mentees, there are some people who are mentoring. Look, by your actions, you are supposed to be mentoring some people. But if your actions are done in such a way that they are inimical to society, they are not in tandem with progress of society, they are not things people should copy, the young should copy, then it leaves so much to be desired. If you check adjectives some of these principles use, if you check expressions used by during campaigns, you'll be shocked.
I mean, we've had stories about how some principals have slapped their deputies and all that.
Absolutely.
I mean,
it also happened those
are
days
stories.
between Jerry John Rawlings in Ghana and his deputy.
There was also
He just called him as if to have a small meeting. He said, look, we are in the same party. I found out that we are always opposing. Started punching him and tore the suit. And when finally the vice president, got an opportunity and ran out, he went out with a torn suit as it was going to donate it to the archives so that they remember a sitting president was beating his deputy, and this is the suit of the deputy. So must it reach that level?
All right.
It shouldn't.
So, this also validates the call for protection for deputy governors, by the former President Jonathan.
Yes, constitutionally.
Now, let's take a look at other stories. We have this lead story on Daily Trust that talks about, pay hike, the likelihood of a pay rise for public office holders and political office holders as well. What do you make of this? I mean, this is coming at a time like this where you have states that are even yet to implement the 30,000 naira minimum wage, and you're talking about increase of pay for presidents, vice president, senate president, speaker, CJ, and governors, and others.
Well, if you are talking of those elected, senate president, the leadership there, if you are talking of the executive, president, vice president, deputy governor, and governor, I think they are making so much in terms of controlling the votes. But look at the judiciary. The greatest of the greatest of an arm that is neglected. When they say justice is being served, the president will rush to judiciary, governors will run to the judiciary. But what do they get in return in terms of their allowances, in terms of their salaries? Honestly, they are getting just peanuts. And a situation where you are sitting over a case of billions, I'm not talking of millions, billions, and your salary is 1 million. Your salary is 1 million. I mean, it leaves so much to be desired. It gives room for some people to go behind the
Corrupt
scene,
practices.
Influence you, and if you think you are an incorruptible judge, as we have in that book by Olaro Timi, look, some people will go and give money to your friends, to your in-laws, to your whoever you are connected with, so that they speak with you. You will not even know that those people have already received something. They'll pretend over it, and they'll be talking to you. So case, how do you handle it? So, and that. They influence you, so to speak. For the judiciary, they deserve this money. They do. When you get, I was reading, just a moment, I was reading that.
Not the general judiciary.
I mean, not just check the proposal there. You see that it goes down to even judges at the magistrate level.
How about the lower magistrate?
Well, if it goes to the head, of course, it has to permeate. That is it. That's the truth. Because a magistrate that will receive 150,000 naira and is presiding a case of how much, over a case of how much, an estate of how much. You begin to see that something is wrong somewhere. It's like a hungry boy is giving, palatable plate of food, not even covered,
will this
to go serve some other people.
But would this be morally justifiable if you look at the fact that the 30,000 naira minimum wage for some states is yet to be implemented?
The judiciary didn't block the executive from paying those people. Like, I am making this case mostly for the judiciary. Seriously. Now, if the executive failed to pay minimum wage, they should look at what is wrong. Look at the cost of governance. When a governor is going to somewhere, how much is spent on that? How much is being spent on hosting some communities who have come to say hello to His Excellency, Chief Doctor, the executive, all the adjectives.
So in other words, you're saying that this is a valid one for the judiciary, except for other public office
because
holders.
the governors, if you say this is their salary, you check some of those allowances.
But the NLC is saying something. The NLC is saying that if you want to do something like that, that the general workers in Nigeria, they're also facing the same economic situation as these same people.
I agree. NLC should impress or stamp their feet very well to ensure that governors that have failed to implement minimum wage should implement that. And there are some states that didn't even need to be prompted. They are paying more than what you call federal government minimum wage. And so those governments is thumb up for them. Those who are yet to pay, look at primary schools. They are always the whipping babies, so to speak. They are down there.
Okay.
You see, teachers are not being paid. Why is it that? Teacher, and you go see. They are not checking the ghost workers, even in primary school setting. Okay,
so quickly before we look at the editorial of the Daily Trust, I want to hear what you make of the dismissal of the U.S. security alert yesterday, from what we heard from the Minister of Information. He's talking about how that it's not. It's fake. In fact, that's what he describes those alerts as fake.
Well, I don't know the honorable minister's sources. He must have been briefed by some people for him to have this opinion publicly this way. But from what I realized, these adversaries were simply they started from advising their embassy staff. Be careful, don't go to public places. Be careful, marketplaces, where you have large gatherings. Be careful, shops and all that stuff. Just be careful. But you see, there's always this thing, some people deliberately, or they just feel, let me leak this thing to the press. And having leaked it, and US has said this and that. But the good thing is, if you check Peter Afunaya, the spokesman for DSS, he said no cause for alarm. After all, we've been raising this alarm all the while, we internally back home. But all the same, it made, you could see that IG react and say, we are on top of the situation.
Yes.
You could see that checking going on here and there. It brought a kind of awareness on the side of the Nigerians, the Nigerian populace. If indeed the populace was asleep, it has woken up. I mean, it's like the adrenaline of everybody is now awake. Who is by my side? Who is in front of me? Who is behind me? So I will not just dismiss it that way, but that it has simply revved the engine of security architecture. And that is the best thing. That's the best way I would describe it.
All right, now let's take a look at the Daily Trust editorial. Maybe we can have that on the screen. Yeah, the Daily Trust editorial is about the mental health bill. It says President signed the mental health bill, because this editorial is because of the fact that, as you know, last week was mental health. Mental health was marked sometime last week. And currently, the country operates a lunacy act, which was first passed in 1907 and reviewed in 1958. You know, the Lunacy Act does not take into consideration the current realities of things. Because first of all, it even refers to it as lunacy, which in itself stigmatizes people that could be dealing with issues like that. So the editorial is calling on the president to sign this mental health bill so that people who have these conditions can actually have where to go to and get the proper treatment.
Yes. I had reasons to interview or interact with the president of Mental Health Association or something in Abuja, Dr. Olusegun Soyombo of the National Hospital. He said, look, this law, as old as it is, allows parents or relations to chain somebody they believe is mentally ill. This law, because of a colonial heritage, they said you can sell the victim's property to take care of him. And nobody is talking about any hospital anywhere. And that is why it is one of the laws that should be, look, the president should sign expressly without any raising of an eyebrow. If you go along the streets in many states, honestly, the kind of mentally deranged people you see. And this thing will usually start from small depression. Nobody is there to advise anyone. And again, look at the way we live, cosmopolitan nature. You are on the same street. Left, right, you don't know the names of children of your neighbors. They don't even play together. You see fences, with barbed wire all over. You are just left in. Whatever is happening, somebody is being maltreated, except otherwise that person is screaming, no one will know. So it is good a thing. But we are told that there are medical facilities around almost every state to take care of mental cases. But they are not well equipped. The doctors are also very, very few. And of course, health providers in those areas, they are also very, very few. Added with some traditional beliefs. Once somebody is having some mental issue, oh, don't marry that area. Do you remember that mad person? He's from that. We should look out who indeed has been frustrated out of a marriage. It can cause madness or lunacy. Who indeed has been frustrated out of job. It can do that.
Do you think that we should perhaps be looking at a redefinition of lunacy or mental health stability or sanity or what have you? Because you have a lot of, in my observation, a lot of people walking the streets that look sane, but if you interrogate closely, you would see that they're actually not sane.
Of course, when you ask a man,
I think somebody that beats traffic has a mental health condition.
You ask a man, how old are you? And he said, my father was born in Asaba. Then you begin to know that something is wrong somewhere. And so we ought to see that, let us have psychologists all over, even in workplaces. I remember where I work, in Ikorodu, a man would climb the mast and refuse to come down. You had to beg, not until the family was brought. Then out of sympathy, love for them, he came down. So, yes, the editorial is apt. Government should do something. It is a collective reasoning of daily trust.
Right.
It's commendable.
All right, thank you so much. This is very apt, especially if you look at the fact that we are in the campaign season. Hopefully, if that law is signed, it will help us put a check on some of the people that come out to even contest for elected positions.
And no wonder NDLEA is saying that let's test the psychological form of those contesting. Let's check to see if they are drug-free so that they can lead the nation very well.
It's not for nothing that the Federal Road Safety, if they catch you making phone call while driving, they say you should go for psychological checks. Because only somebody with mental health will want to endanger himself and every other person.
Or you drive against traffic.
All right, well, it's a good place to end the discussion on the newspaper review this morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak, as always. Our guest reviewer is Ben Shebang, the Director of News, Voice of Nigeria. With that, we'll take a short breather, and then when we return, the Daybreak will continue. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a look at the
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that